Morning! Did any of you ever used to watch Mr. Rogers' Neighborhood? Remember that song? It's a beautiful day in the neighborhood, a beautiful day for a neighbor. Will you be mine? So I was like, you know what? Let me see what that feels like. What if I came in and I had my own little tune? Ba-da-ba-ba-da-ba-ba, ba-ba-ba-da. Okay, let's say I need practice. Don't tell Mr. Rogers, okay? I would definitely have embarrassed and insulted him, okay? All right, so we're ready to rock and roll. Good, whatever it is, morning, afternoon, wherever you are watching. Welcome back to our lab, our amazing lab. So, listen, the first thing I want to do is introduce myself. I always have to remember someone may be tuning in for the first time. I am Dr. Small with a Stronger Foundation. I am the executive director of a Stronger Foundation, which is home of the Academic Success Plan for Kids. All right. So today, remember our service is we're a real program out there. We act as a supplemental program for any educational system because a lot of the system by themselves, they're not fully developed enough to avoid learning gaps along the way, and that's private charter schools or any of the schools. You know, you might be thinking, well, I'm paying thousands of dollars a year for my school. Yeah, if they don't have some type of a supplemental program going on, even some of the best private schools, they're releasing children with a lot of gaps. And if you look at the data, it's not far from a public school data. You may have a few percentages higher, a few more children that scoring the highest percentage is a percentile, but in general, it's just the same, okay? Because it depends on the outcome and the end goal. You know, any school that's just preparing a child to shine academically and to, roll off the cliff in educational excellence, that's good, but that's only going to take them so far. All right, we're not necessarily impressed with schools that can get a child to graduate top 1% because I guess to the people that are not experts in education, or I'm not saying I am. So I'm hearing voices in my head, right? Good Lord, forgive me. But what I mean is, for like the average novice, like I'm a novice when it comes to installing windows in my house. I don't know the first step. I don't know the first step in changing out a door. So I don't DIY that stuff. I go to the experts and get them to do it. So that's what I mean. So for the average person that don't understand what's happening with education in general, they might think, oh my God, you graduated top 1%. You're going to succeed in life. You're going to line up with your best self. Not necessarily. In fact, you could graduate top 1% and someone else could graduate top negative 1%. And that person could end up with a more fulfilling life than that brilliant person because it's not just education that's going to make the difference. And you've been hearing this from others. You've heard it before. I'm not the first to say this to you. Okay, maybe it's the first time that anyone has broken it down like this way. I don't know, but you've heard it and you need to believe it. You need to understand. Eventually, we're going to go into some other areas today that we're talking about end goal of educational programs, okay? Because there's no way that every school could have the same problem where the data is looking the same. There's no way. And that's why people say, well, everyone's drinking milk, so maybe it's the milk. It's not the milk. It's not the water. All right. You're in our lab. You're in Dr. Small's lab now. So you have an idea. All right. And I've been vulnerable for you. I put myself down there for criticisms and everything else. Right. But that's okay. So see, I'm not afraid of rejection and I'm not afraid of criticism. When you're on path for your best self and your purpose, you understand that those type of things come at you. Sometimes people who are struggling with their amygdala, all the fear, they are afraid to chase their personal dream and purpose because it's hard. It's hard. So it's easier for them to sit back and criticize. So when you see people who's your whole podcast is based on attacking other podcasts. I mean, think about it. Is that their real purpose, or they're able to criticize others? But what are they supposed to really be doing? I mean, is that their purpose in life, to criticize somebody else's effort towards their purpose? I guess that's a rhetorical question. So let's move on. And so, yeah, just introducing myself. And our program is a stronger foundation, because a strong foundation is not good enough to align with your purpose. You need a stronger foundation, okay? And we offer success skills development. Success skills development. You got to develop the skills that's going to help you to succeed. They're not automatic. They don't just fall in your lap. Schools are going to give you the educational skills. And if you really pay attention in school, you'll see that they are teaching you the skills, the educational skills that you need. They are teaching them to you, right? They may not always succeed in getting you up to the top of the taxonomy in every skill, but I do know teachers do try. They try, but if you won't accept it, remember I told you, you can't reach a child who doesn't want to be reached. You're not going to do it, no matter how great your strategies are. In fact, we have a model here, the Stronger Foundation, and it says that level 1 is emotions. Because you see, you have to get the systems to relax in order for this to function, the frontal lobe, right? Can you see it? You have to get your limbic system to relax, for your hypothalamus to understand, okay, we have homeostasis, that even though, a scary skill is being introduced, it's okay. We're cool. We're going to be all right. But brain don't work like that. You can't tell the brain, well, actually, that's what we teach, is that you have to learn how to get the brain to understand that even though this is a new, unfamiliar territory, it's all right. You don't have to go into fight or flight. You don't have to panic. You don't have to break down. This is safe. So you have to tell your brain that this is safe. Okay, that's what I mean. Almost like if you were in a drama presentation, right? And remember, I already told you that if in real life someone's chasing you like with an axe, that your brain, you don't have to tell your brain, on 3, we're going to panic. 3, 2, 1, panic. No, it's automatically going to go into panic. It's going to go into survival mode and fight or flight. You're going to get this strength to either fight with all your might, because when you're about to lose your ghost, I mean, hey, you're going at it with everything. It's just a natural. It's survival. That's what survival looks like. And so that's what happens. But my point was, now, if you're in a drama presentation and someone's coming at you, the reason why you don't panic and run away and fall apart and really rip them apart is because your brain knows, oh, this is just acting. It's not really happening. Okay. And that's how you're able to be in a situation where the same action is occurring, but you don't go into the mode. So you have to learn how to do that in a situation of learning, so that you don't fall apart, your heart rate don't start to pump really fast, your blood pressure don't increase. And then don't forget, when those things happen, you can even black out. You can fall apart, like end up in the hospital in a panic. Like some people have panic attacks, right? And I think that's linked to anxiety, and they think there's danger and that they're being attacked and they're about to die, and they go into this full panic mode, and maybe they can black out and end up in the hospital. And that's why really I have a soft place in my heart towards that condition, because that's got to be really frightening. Now listen, wanted to use this particular episode, and it's not a series, it's just a random. Sometimes I have to just break the series and just do a little catch up and clear up some things. Like, for example, I wanted to apologize for something because I'm always talking about Harriet Tubman. Like, I know there were other Black people that did a lot of great things, Black activists, Dr. Martin Luther King Jr. And there's just a lot more that I don't always come to my memory right away. Or, I forget. If you don't study something all the time, you really do just forget it. And so I wanted to apologize because there are other people, maybe you're listening and you're thinking, man, there's a lot of people that did some great things. But remember, just like I said, I don't go deep, deep, deep into the brain functions. All I do is focus on the part that impacts learning. So if you're expecting to learn from me how the brain work and function in every single, category, this is not that podcast, right? And in the same way, I wish I knew of more that would come right to my mind, but I really relate back to Harriet Tubman because I think she defies some of the areas that I aspire, like if I had to walk through murky water or just put my feet in dirty water at all, it would be like, oh my God, it's like, I feel like I would just forfeit the freedom. I'd say, you know what? I really, really, I really, really want to be free, but they're going to have to do something with this mud and this water. And I mean, there might be a snake in there, but she just risked everything. So, yeah. So, anyways, a friend of mine, she was showing me, she said, there are other great Black people that have done great things too. And I said, I know. I said, give me a list and I'll read them off. Okay. So I wanted to just to apologize because there are other great people. And I was just pointing out the ones that, you know, strongly influenced me and propel me towards my greatness, wanting to be my best self. Because I feel like in every way that she did that, she served her purpose. And she didn't end up being super rich. That's not what it's about. But you better believe she died a fulfilled woman. Lots of great meaning in her life. When she looked back over her life and she thought about what she had done, and she went back to God and he said, let me see the talent. Where's the talent that I gave you? And she pulled it out and God was like, well done, Harriet. You go on, girl. Get on up in there and enjoy the pearly gates and all of that stuff, the streets of gold and everything else that you've worked so hard. So you've been faithful over a few. Take it all. All right, so that's that. And then I wanted to finish today. I think I talked about everything. Let's finish the services. Okay, we got success skills development because that's important. If you want to succeed in life, you have to learn success skills. It's not just automatic. And you're not just going to learn it by learning. Here I go with the same, I always come with the same examples. Fractions, unlike fractions, improper fractions. I go there because that's really where math gets serious. You have to convert fractions to decimals to percentages and find discounts and learn the slope intercept. That's when that to me, that's like when it really gets serious between fourth and sixth grade math, all of that together. I feel like it takes you through the rest of the way. It really does. So all the other things are just like learning how to add and subtract multiple digit numbers, subtracting across zeros, regrouping addition problems. Those are challenging too, but the meat is that fourth through sixth grade math is what I believe. I believe everything gets introduced then. After that, it's like higher algebra, which, it's not, those are to me not the basic math. They're not basic, they're higher math. You get into your algebra 2 honors, your geometries, but you got to at least know your fourth through sixth grade math very, 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 very well. All right. We teach success skills development, and so that you have education and you know how to succeed with that education that you have. If you only have education, smart, 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 and we just admire those kids that are so smart. That's what gets me upset sometimes when I go down to the school board, and I speak and I say, listen, we're spending all of our time elevating the few high achievers that we have when the majority of the data, we know what that data look like, but what they do is they're going to celebrate these few 2% that's actually doing well. And then I tell them, I said, listen, we got to focus our energy on these children because there are more children that can be celebrated. Instead of just being so excited about the 2%, why not bring another 80% along? So that we're having a big celebration and everyone can join in. So yeah, I do. I get up to the school board. I don't just lecture you. I lecture them too. All right. So you have company. You got to teach success skills. Okay. And I'm going to tell you why the school district is still fine, why they're doing an excellent job, impeccable job, because they're doing what they're supposed to do. So I know there's a podcast coming up on that. There's an episode that's going to talk about it and look at what they're doing, and how we spend all our time saying, oh, the teachers aren't nice. The teachers don't like the kids. The teachers are angry. The teachers are burnt out, blah, 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 blah. We talk all day long till you turn blue or whatever skin tone you turn, as long as teachers are introducing those skills, they are setting the platform. They're setting the foundation. It's not necessarily their duty to bring you up here. And I'm going to tell you something. They do give the practice to bring every child there. But see, without practice, you ain't going to stay. You're going to remember. It's going to go into working memory. Might make it into short-term memory. And then it's just going to slide right on out. All right. We have educational enrichment training, because success skills without educational enrichment, it's like you have a crutch. You can't walk right with a crutch. And even when you have two crutches, you kind of move, you can still move smoother. But when you have one crutch, you've got a strong mindset. I can do all things. I can do everything. I can move. That's mountain. I say, mountain, move. You better move. Yeah, that's my Christian side. That's what we do. We just speak faith. Oh, we got all the faith. Faith, we could just speak it. Remember I said, in one of our messages, I say, yeah, that's a big deal when you speak it, because when you speak it and it gets up in your brain, it's supposed to align with a certain action. But normally for Christians, somewhere between the brain, but we're speaking life. And a lot of times we speak it on Sunday, but we don't always speak it during the week. So maybe that's where it is. Because I know my theory says that if you speak it and you believe it and you practice it, you're going to achieve it, right? So a lot of times if we're just speaking it, I can do all things. I'm going to move that mountain, move. But there's no action behind it. So faith without work is dead. You can't fool. There's a subconsciousness happening up there. A subconscious mind, you cannot fool it. You cannot make it believe something that is not so. And so the action's still going to align up with what you truly believe right here. That's what's going to be materialized. You have to believe. You got to speak it. You got to practice it so that you can achieve it. All right. So that's what we have. We have success skills. We have educational enrichment. And we have the academic evaluation and consultation. Parents can come in and you'll meet with Dr. Small and we'll give your child an evaluation. I love to do the evaluation because once we do the evaluation, then it's on the parent, and then if you know, because it's one thing when you're oblivious and when you think your child is actually doing well and they're aligned with success. Doing well educationally is not the same as doing well to achieve your desired and ideal purpose. It's not the same thing. So if your scores are low, though, that's a great indication. And the thing is, it's not even just because you have gaps in education and you're not going to necessarily be able to get a decent job if you can't read well or write well or calculate well. It's more than that. Because see, the stronger foundation, we use education to develop certain principles, certain success principles. And that's what's unique about us. I think once we had an episode and it said, what's so special about a stronger foundation? What makes it so different? You have all these institutions, educational institutions that's doing their work and they still look like this. Why would a stronger foundation and the Dr. Small system of childhood enrichment and alignment, what makes that so different? If nobody else have been able to figure it out, how can you figure it out? I don't know. I always tell the parents, I don't know, but I know KFC seems to have some kind of special recipe that makes them stand out. And we've got something too, okay? I could say the same thing. How come I can mix everything in my pantry, all the little seasonings and everything, and like Some people say put your foot in it and it still don't taste like that. Okay. And I'm not advocating for that chicken place because, I'm not a big fried chicken person, but at least I know they have some kind of ingredient that a lot of people seem to like and that makes them stand out from other fried chicken places. And but that's what we got. We have something incredible, and we have a way of using education to develop success skills that align your child to walk right into their purpose. All right. Remember, I said we're going to get back to another. We have a series coming up. The Art of Education is coming up, and it's going to talk about destinations and how, depending on the destination of the educational institution, that's going to determine where your child end up. All right. So I love the evaluation because then again, the parents can see, and I like to show them. I said, these are the skills your child are supposed to know. And what's cool about it is not that it's some other random skills or standards that we create. We don't create the standard. We are just capable of building the standard all the way up to the top of the learning taxonomy. That's our trademark, secret, or ingredient that we have, and we know how to do that very well. And we say to the parent, here are the standards, here are all the gaps in that standard. Your child, rarely any of them, like we have yet to see any child who have succeeded in passing our evaluation, even at the first level, which is remembering. Can you even identify the skill? Now, see, oh, God help me, I get so carried away. But see, when we talk about the drop-off zone, okay, let's go over here for 1 minute, then I'll come back. When we go over to the drop-off zone, and we go over to the drop-off zone, where is it? Right here, right? And it shows how during primary school, this is green part is the grass, okay? But they have a transition from primary over to secondary. And when the child gets to 5th grade, right, and they have to transition from 5th grade over to middle school at 6th grade, there is an area where the teacher disappeared, like all that extra support. Teachers are still there, but I mean, when they're in elementary, a lot of things are watered down. Baby steps, baby steps. They don't get a rigorous experience. In fact, a lot of schools don't even give real grades anymore, where they used to get A, B, C, D, and F in elementary schools. A lot of schools now are given different letter codes like PR for proficient, which is based on a scale, right? So a lot of times now parents don't know if the child is an A, B, or a C, or high D when they get a proficient, because proficiency is based on a scale, it's supposed to start 70% and up. So once you get that PR, you don't know if it's an A, B, C, D. And I know my theory is that the school system had to do something like that, because when they used to give real grades in elementary, that upset a lot of people and parents. Parents come out and they're angry. They don't necessarily always want to know the truth. Some parents, okay, I can't say all, because I know I'm one that I kind of like to know the truth, In fact, I prefer just give me the truth, because when I know my child is doing well in school, I can back off. But if they're not doing well in school, I'm not going to stay backed off. I want to know. But a lot of times parents didn't want to know, so they had to go with this PR system for proficiency. And the time that a parent finds out. Now, if you're the parent of an older child, maybe now in 7th grade, at least you can say, you know what, Dr. Small's got something. It's true. Because when my child was in 2nd and 3rd grade, I thought they were doing pretty well. And then when they hit 6th grade and they got a D, okay, and the parent gets real angry and they go up to the school and, they get ready. They're like, what are you talking about? My child has always been an honor roll student. They were always at the top. They always got A's. It wasn't an A, mama. It was PR. It was a proficiency. okay? And you didn't want to know what it really meant. Now, what I love is that when you get to middle school, you're not going to get up in the teacher's face just the same. See, in elementary school, parents, they kind of bark at the teachers and you kind of, I don't know, can say dumb them down, and they're like, okay, sure, all right. They can't even tell you the truth of what's going on with your child, because then you're going to call the principal, and the principal is going to call them into the office, and they're going to get harassed. And come on, it's just not worth it for them. They're like, look, I'm getting like $40,000 a year. I ain't got time for this. Okay. You want your child to fail that much? Okay. All right. Let me get out of the way. Okay. Because a lot of times teachers, it's almost like figuratively, they're trying to trip you as a parent to get you to, stumble a little bit and wake up. Like, trip, stick your leg out and trip them. So you'll be like, oh, whoa, what? And then you can get their attention and say, your child is failing, right? They don't want to hear it. They just want to go around telling everybody, oh, my child's on the honor roll. Oh my goodness. Okay. You get on a roll in elementary school for getting like a C minus, because when most of the children are down here in the blue zone, I mean, a C minus don't look so bad. Okay. Come on, I'm talking about the truth. If you're a teacher, and especially middle school, a lot of times you're forced to graduate these children to the next grade, and they're basically at like a 35% of proficiency. Not doing that great. But if they're already 15 years old and they're only in seventh grade, for example, I don't know, if they fail so much, you got to send them on, whether or not they do any work. And I know this because one of the child that I've worked with early on years ago, and I never forget what the child said to me, because, I wanted the child to do well. So I would always say things like, if you don't apply yourself, they're going to hold you back. And then the child would say, literally say to me, I'm in seventh grade now. And since I was in second grade, they've been telling me that I was going to be held back. And I've never been held back. And when I tell you, this child was doing like no work. But when they said that to me, I understood that they understand you're going to pass through the system. And that's what was happening. All right. So what I'm saying now is when a child gets here, okay, to the zone here, where you have some earth, and that represents, that they can get that support. But after they get now to this drop-off zone, that's those kids that all the way in kindergarten, we knew they were struggling, couldn't read, couldn't sound out letters, didn't understand how to blend letters together, couldn't read three-letter words. They got to first and second grade. And second grade's like a recess year. For whatever reason, a lot of teaching don't get done in second grade. I've never understood it, right? This is when the child's window of opportunity is wide open to be able to absorb and adapt to all sorts of rigorous learning. But somehow second grade year is like it's like a year off. I don't know why. But we make sure we maximize that at a stronger foundation. You better believe we do. And then when they have to do that transition now, because they've been developing these gaps in first grade, second grade, third grade, when they get to fifth grade and they're still struggling, speaking to Dr. Small, I say that when I want to connect with you. And you have a fifth grade child that can't read fluently at a first grade level, getting ready to go to middle school. Am I crazy, or is that not like a crime? Should that not be something that someone gets arrested for allowing a child to forfeit their development phase while they're on their way to becoming an adult, where they're going to have those very skills just to survive? Is that not criminal? Okay. I mean, I think so. I mean, I think, it's a misdemeanor. It has to have something in the criminal scale. It needs a category just for that. Now, I know that not allowing children to go to school at all, whether homeschool or anything, I know that is a crime. But allowing the child to show up at school and just to go through the motion and never learn anything. All the absence is keeping the child home from school just because they don't want to miss an episode that's coming on earlier in the day. That stuff is wrong. Okay? That doesn't align with love. In fact, the academic architect have an episode and it says, what does love have to do with it? What's love got to do? Got to do with it? For real. What does love have to do with allowing somebody to fail year after year after year, knowing they only get a short period of time? Do you realize if we live to be 100, right? The first 10 years of their life, that's when you have to build that 10% of their life. That 10% of their life determines the other 90% of their life. Okay, see, I had to think because I have a way of just making some silly mistakes sometimes. All right, that's another thing too. I want you to know that everything here, this lab, we're unscripted in the lab. The academic architect has a script. We're reading from a script, so usually won't make as many errors and mistakes. But when I'm standing in front of you and I'm trying to remember the roles of the cerebrum and the cerebellum, sometimes I have to just I pause sometimes because I'm wondering, okay, was I talking about the cerebellum or was I talking about the cerebrum or was I talking about the amygdala? And I just don't want to make sure that I'm not telling you the wrong thing. Not that I don't know it, but I tend to, if you're talking fast and your brain is like 3 days ahead, it's easy to do that. So when you see me pause, it's because I'm trying to, backpedal a little bit. What term did I just mention? I want to make sure that I'm going to give you the right definition. So hopefully you forgive me for that. But while I'm talking to you, a lot of times, a lot of ideas is popping into my head. Oh, mention that. And then, so I try to stay focused, so forgive me for that. So let's get on back, guys. So then I said that should be a crime, and some arrests should be made for that because that's just not right. Because there's no way for a child to know, we've been there. We're adults. We know the consequence of not making certain decisions while they're young. And then yesterday when I was walking through the park and I heard the kids playing and the laughter, it was such a joy to hear. It was so refreshing to hear childhood laughter. And some people were out there with the whole family. One family from some other country, they were playing soccer, so they were speaking in their, different native tongue, but it still sounded like fun. Fun is fun no matter what culture you're from. And it was so nice. And then I passed by the playground and you had children on there. And they sounded like birds laughing, like when the birds chirp. The kids sounded like little birds. They were so happy and free. And I saw another family, made me especially happy. And a whole family of just, different cultures. I'm not going to call culture name, but just out there with the whole family. The father was there. The mother was there. The children were there on a school day, after school, just relaxing and enjoying life. And I thought that was so beautiful. So I love a balance. I love that balance. I always tell you, you work hard, you play hard. So as I listened to them, all I could think was, I hope that they're also balanced in their learning. I hope that they've done their homework and, stretched themselves a little bit. And then the family says, okay, now let's go to the park. That's perfect. That's how it's supposed to be. Mm-hmm. So here, when you're leaving 5th grade and you have to cross over now into secondary, there's that open area where you don't have the teacher babying you anymore. And that's the drop-off zone. So a lot of kids after 5th grade, they drop off, okay? In academic death, or at least life support, okay? And if nobody give them the treatments, they're eventually just going to become a dead man walking, right? Because remember, we go up after we leave secondary. Now, guys, we get to the Great Divide, and even before as we're crossing over into secondary, remember that's when we see the first fork. Now, I'm sure there are other forks maybe before, But that's the first fork that I refer to is that transition from primary to secondary. And we call it a fork because at that time, there's a decision that has to be made. You see, everyone's not automatically going to be able to go towards the greatness. That's a fork where now there's a road, and these kids are going to have to walk and go to the mediocre side because they're not equipped. They're not equipped. If your foundation look like this, you're not equipped to go towards the greatness side. What I mean is, if in fifth grade, you have a very shaky foundation, your fifth grade teacher is not going to recommend, let's say math, they're not going to recommend advanced algebra for you or seventh grade advanced. They're not going to do that because that's really going to squeeze your neck, right? So even if the child wants now to go into some of their friends are going into algebra 2 honors. Maybe they did some online courses while they were in elementary school. So now they can go right up, move up into the middle school classes. But then, you have to make a choice. If you can't go that way, you can't go that way. That's a fork. And that's like the first real fork since, elementary. Then you get to that great divide. The great divide, I feel like it's right there in high school. Right there in high school, towards the end of high school, when you're about to graduate, then hit your future life, right? And the future life, you're either going to be towards greatness or mediocrity. There's no way around it. There's no middle ground. There's especially no middle ground because middle class is like on its way out. And I hope y'all taking this seriously because again, if your child fall in this data, and don't just tell me that they don't, prove to me that they don't. All right. If the money is an issue, we're $79 for a nice evaluation that you can understand. Not the type of evaluation that you get. And when they're done giving you statistics, your poor head starts to spin. You have no clue what you just paid for. We give you a realistic evaluation that gets, speak to you as a human, mom to Dr. Small to child. And we say, your child don't know these skills. And remember, the skills build on each other. Okay, the standards are going to keep building and they get more complex. And when we show you, we're going to say, you want your child to do well in sixth grade, they have to close these gaps because it's like you're climbing a ladder. Okay, let me say it right. You're climbing a ladder. Okay? And you know how a ladder is. You start with the first step and then you go up, 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 and you're climbing up. So I always tell parents, when you don't close the gaps on the first and second rung of the ladder or the third or the fourth, it's almost like you have a child that's on the bottom floor and you're asking them to step up to here. Get your ladder right now, and I want you to skip the first 6 or first 5, okay? So we're talking about if they had developed from kindergarten to 5th grade. So that's 6th grade, right? Kindergarten, 1st, 2nd, 3rd, 4th, 5th. And if they skipped all of those, I want you to try and step from the ground to the 6th round on your ladder, and you'll understand what you're asking children to do when they have all these learning gaps. It's nearly impossible to do. It is. Okay? So when that the support is gone, that's when parents wake up and then they go to the middle school because the kids drop off. Academic slump, what did I call it again? Nightmare, academic nightmare, and academic, they fall into a coma. A lot of stuff's happening right there. Okay? Now, parents when they get to 6th grade and they start to get the C's and the D's and the parents come in, excuse me, I need to speak to the teacher, please. I need an appointment in a conference. Okay, my child was getting straight A's in elementary school, and all of a sudden they're getting D's. I don't think it's the child. I think it's the teacher. I think it's a change in the atmosphere and in the environment. It's not my child. He was always the child. And you were told, because even though these elementary school teachers, they can't tell you the truth explicitly, they definitely imply it. One, and if you look at the report card, A lot of times, where they have those pounds, they were telling you, okay, but you didn't want to hear it. You preferred to tell yourself the lie. When I was walking through the park again, I love what I heard, and I wish that's how childhood always could be. That from morning till night, they just get up and they're just laughing like birds. But we know that's setting them up for failure because there's no job in life. Well, a lot of jobs in life, you don't play for a living. Now, I know if you work at Disney World, then maybe your job is to play with the children or entertain them. Then, yeah, that's a different type of play, but that's still work. Okay. All right. So then when you go to the teacher and you start that madness, the teacher's just going to look at you. I'm going to tell you right now, the higher you go is the more the teachers are just going to look at you like you're crazy. They're going to hear you and they might give you one of these. I see what you're saying. I'm so sorry that she's struggling in this area. What are some of the things you think that we can do together as a team to change the situation? Oh, they're going to give you one of those numbers. They're going to throw it right back in your lap because, see, they're looking right through you. They're like, we know who we're talking to. We're talking to a parent who knew that this child was dying slowly, killing me softly. Remember that? Mm-hmm. Slowly dying, and you knew it because you're told. You're told. I have parents that come to me. One parent cried. I had no idea my child was struggling in school. Do you know what that says about you? You have no idea the child was struggling. It means you never looked at your report card because that teacher can be sued if they don't put a pound in areas that your child is struggling in. And this parent bawled and bawled and bawled. And, of course, I comforted. What am I going to do? What else am I going to do? But I say to them, fix it. Dr. Small, when you come to me, you're coming for the truth. Just letting you know right away. You're coming to me, you're not coming to me for me to tell you the stories that sometimes teachers are forced to tell you. And that's the first thing I tell the parents. I say, when you come to me, you're ready to fix the problem. And when you're ready to fix the problem, you're not going to be able to dictate. Because, see, that's what's happening in the public school system. The parents are running the show. And you're dictating when you don't have a clue what's going on and how standards are reinforced and how standards are built. And even a lot of teachers, some of the things I've talked about, even if they don't use these terms correctly, they've gone through certain training. We all had to take psychology. We've learned about the ideal self and the different ideas behind those, ideas about the ideal self. Freud, right? Sigmund Freud. I was trying to think of his name. Yeah, Sigmund Freud. I talked about that. And so they have an idea what's happening. And when you decide that you're not going to work and try to help and try to, team up with them, they don't want the trouble. They don't want the trouble. So anyways, like I keep saying, I always come back. I know where I was. I just get off track a bit sometimes, but I come back. So yeah, get that evaluation from a stronger foundation. Come on, or actually just apply. And I know there's a phone number that tells you can call that number and schedule, or you can text and you can schedule. It's good to know because otherwise you don't want to be one of those parents that knowingly allowed your child to die slowly. You're killing them softly and slowly, knowing that without a proper education, and to me, it's not just, because the education, you might think I'm sending them to school. That's enough. Yeah. If you're okay, because the school system, their role is to simply promote survival. And we'll talk about that in another episode. And so if that's all you want for your child, if you just want them to survive barely, because since time's getting so much harder and with inflation and everything, we don't know when that's going to change. But now you got a child. Now, when I became an adult, houses still was never cheap. But I remember $230,000. That was a lot for a house, right? And now that 230,000 is more like 450,000, and the kids are coming out and they're unable to start their life because everything is so expensive. And that's because if you're only training them to survive don't get you a house. Survival skills don't get you not even a decent car, right? How much are cars now? The decent ones that actually function properly, right? They're very expensive, right? So when a child gets out of high school and they realize, good Lord, I got no bank account, I got no money in my bank account. I challenge children in my care. I say by the time you get to 18, you should have no less than $10,000 in your bank account, right? How does that happen with us? Well, that's because we introduce innovation. Okay, I think I lost my paper, but we introduce innovation at a certain time. All right, what we do differently, we educate children to a certain level by a certain age. So instead of taking all this time up to 12th grade before they understand how to do certain work, you knock that thing out. They're ready. And none of our kids are struggling. None of them are, have brain issues. Oh, you're overworking the child. Nonsense. Nonsense. These children are resilient. When I tell you, good Lord. I mean, even the other day when I visited our site, and these kids, when it's time to work, it's like they get it. They just go right to work. And I see myself and I'm like, good Lord, I don't know if I could do that. I don't know if I could have just, all right, it's time to do the work. And they just do it, and they do it properly, and they do it right, and they do it with integrity, because we teach academic integrity. But to see it on display, it's like, who are these kids? Are they normal? So it impresses me, even though I know we taught it and that we instilled it in them, but to see them do it. And then when it's time to go outside, they're equally happy. They're like, yay! They run, they have a great time, and they're so appreciative of the playtime. But when you say, okay, playtime's over, you bring them back inside, and if it was me, I'd be like, I have to go back to work. But they just, without saying, okay, guys, now it's time to get back to work. By the time you turn around, everyone's back to work, and you're like, who are these kids? How is this even possible? But it just shows that the Dr. Small system for childhood enrichment and alignment, it works. They understand that balance. They know that I'm going to work hard and then I'm going to play hard. All right? Because I always joke with them too. And I say, listen, when it's time to play, I don't want to see any books. Okay? We don't play with books. And so they love when I say that, because it means go out there and have fun. Run. I tell them, run so hard till you just fall over. Anyway, got to wrap this up now. We have academic evaluation and consultation. We'll talk to you as a parent. If we're not right for you, all we want is for you to take action. Our podcast is coming up. It's going to be called A Call to Action. We want you to do something. Stop telling us that, yeah, I want my child to succeed. I want my child to have their best life. If you don't have an academic success plan for your kid, you're just talking. You're just talking, and that's all you're doing. There's no action, and you don't mean it, okay? You don't mean it. So after that, we have parent information sessions, and I love those because it's a very concise version of all of this. We're able to show you your school data, whatever school your child is attending. We can pull up that data, and we could say, if your child is Caucasian, this is where they are. If your child is Hispanic, this is where they are. And if your child is African American, this is where they are. And usually, if the child, even this Caucasian group of kids, doesn't mean that they have this foundation that's solid and that's tight, and it doesn't mean that they don't have gaps. It just means out of all the low performing kids, they happen to be leading. And the African American group is at the bottom of the low performers, but still all three of these situations is still performing with a ton of gaps. Okay. Remember, we have the overall data, and the overall data, okay, few children are even hitting a level 5. A few of all the races, Caucasian children, the Spanish and African American children, they're falling short on the data. All right, so the information session is really awesome. It's incredible. And we want you to sign up for one of those. Then we have the professional presentation and guest speaker. If you want Dr. Small to come and speak to your organization, we're on board with that. We work with homeschoolers. We work with public schools, private schools, and any entity. Anyone that works with children, any advocates for children, we're able to just orient you and align you with getting your children to succeed. Okay. And so I think that covers it for this episode. We have said so much. All right. So I'm going to wrap it up because the time has gone. And I'm going to ask you right away, please forgive me because this was a very long episode. But I always tell people teachers can talk and I can talk. All right. Anyways, thank you so much for stopping by. We will see you in the next episode. All right. While you're away, you're adults. That's fine. Keep trying to be your best self. Keep striving to become the best version of who you were created to be. Okay. Because if you're just working a regular job or a career, that might not be your calling. So you still have work to do. I want you to keep pressing on. And I want you parents to really start thinking about what I'm saying, to help align your children so they don't repeat the same patterns that some of us have achieved or the pattern we followed. All right. I've got to go and I'll see you in the next episode.